Okay, in this video I am going to be going over what's new and different in MayaStar 5.2. Okay, so let's get into it. So I'm going to start in the menu, which is where all the mainly all the changes have been done. Not all of them, but most of them. So I'm going to tear off the menu, the MayaStar menu. Oops, if I can move it here. There we go. Okay, so let's start at the top. Okay, I did some reorganization of the Activate MayaStar Avatar. I was finding I myself, who created the menu, was clicking on the wrong selection from time to time. And so it just gotten too cluttered and too confusing, visually confusing. So I rearranged it a little bit and reorganized it a little bit. So now you have the four different avatars that you can activate. You know, the female original, male original, female bento, and male bento. And then at the bottom here we have animation tools. And I have a little note here to remind you that you must activate one of these four avatars first before you try to animate them. If you just click on animate one of them, you'll get an error. Okay. And down here, if you hover over anything, down here you'll see little tips and advice things that will pop up. So it gives you a little bit more information about, about having to activate an avatar first before selecting one of the options below. So I put the animators over here. It's a lot less visually confusing, and I think it'll be easier for people to understand. Okay, then you have exporters. Right now we have only two exporters. They're both BVH exporters. They're both written by Samantha Patterson. They're both open source, and you can download them from the internet, so you don't have to have MayaStar. I've made a few minor changes to both of them just to make it a little bit easier to export with. What are the differences between 1.5 and 1.6? 1.5 is the original exporter that Samantha created a long time ago, well before Bento. And before Bento, you could only do translation animation on the hip bone, or what was called the hip. And the hip usually meant the end pelvis bone, unless you're using a special rig that has like those arrows at the bottom, like when you activate or you animate in MayaStar, one of the originals avatars, or one of the Bento avatars, that sort of arrows things that the avatar is standing on, that are pointing forward and back, left and right. Well, that's what you're doing the translation animation on. That moves the entire avatar around. So with 1.5, that's the only thing you can make a translation animation, meaning to actually move it around. All the other bones in the skeleton, including the pelvis bone, you can do rotation-only animations on, at least in the MayaStar. If you're not using the MayaStar rig and you just got a regular skeleton, it's the pelvis bone that you can do translation animations on and rotations on. And then the rest of the bones in the skeleton, you could do rotation-only animations on, if you're going to be using the Exporter 5.1. If you're doing just rotation animations, do yourself a favor and use the Exporter 5.1. You'll get more expected results. It's less complicated to use, so you're going to less likely do something by mistake and your animation comes in messed up, So that's why I left it in there, because it's actually you get much more reliable results in that it's less finicky. 1.6 exporter, you can do translation and rotation animations on all the bones, on everything. But because it's doing so much more, it gets a little finicky. And if you're doing just rotation animations only and use 1.6 exporter, you might end up getting an unexpected result that you didn't intend. So, you know, just because it's a little bit more difficult to use, it's a little bit more advanced type of animation. Translation animations on all the bones and rotations. So the BVH exporter is a bit more. It just ends up being a bit more finicky. So yeah, that's why I have both those exporters out there. It's 1.6 works the way it's supposed to. You just have to create your animations correctly. You know, if you do that, you're golden. And I do have a video going over the sort of the workarounds and the things you have to be aware of when creating animations to be exported out with 1.6. So I have a whole video on that. You can go through my videos and you can see it. So I don't need to go through complete detail on it. So okay, I'm hoping that Samantha is going to finish a .anim exporter, a .anim exporter for Maya, which will be open source. I'm hoping she'll do that. She's been working on it for months and months and months. She's probably just been really super busy with work and other things that she just hasn't quite finished it yet. And so I hope she'll finish it one day, because yeah, .anim exporter is so much nicer than a BVH exporter. You can do so much more things with it, and I don't think you'd end up getting as many unexpected results. And so, anyway, but those are all other videos that you can watch that I have about animation. So, okay, so back to what's new and different. Okay, let's see, if we keep going down, we come to animation and poses. And with animation and poses, I've added a custom 1 and a custom 2. Therefore, creating custom poses. And I will, at the end of this video, show how to create a custom pose. I have another video showing how to create custom poses and how to make buttons for those poses if you want to put buttons up here. But a friend of mine suggested, and customer suggested, adding a couple of blank custom poses in the menu, so that if somebody just didn't want to make a button but wanted to make just 1 or 2 custom poses, it could without having to make a custom button. So I thought that was a great idea, so I added it. So I'll show you how to make one at the end of the video. Okay, so then you got the custom bind pose. Remember, just to let you know, there's a difference between a bind pose and a pose. Okay, these are not bind poses. So just to let you know, these are just poses. This is to create a bind pose, or to create a custom bind pose. Okay, so I'll come back to creating a pose at the end of the video. So let's keep going. Okay, the next thing that I've changed, another good friend of mine suggested creating an select all selection button, that you can click on to select all the bones in the skeleton. So let's activate the female bento, and I'll show you. Because if you've watched one of my recent videos, or videos that are just before this video came out, I'm showing how to rig to developer kits and how to copy weights and stuff. And a real easy way to do a quick smooth bind for copying weights is just to simply rig your mesh to all the bones in the skeleton. That way, when you copy the weights from the avatar or whatever you're copying the weights from, you're going to be assured that you're going to have all of the same bones that the original mesh was rigged to. It's okay to have more bones than the original mesh that you're copying the weights from to, but it's bad if you have less than the original mesh you're copying the weights from. And then I show in the other videos how to quickly get rid of the bones that you don't need in your mesh clothing. So Let me, let's do a little quick little show you. I'm going to hide, whoops, and I'm going to show you. Okay, so when you click all bones select, it selects all the bones in the skeleton. I open up the outliner, and for just those, I know there's probably a few beginners out there. If you hover your mouse over the little plus sign here and hold down the shift key and left mouse click on it, it'll expand everything at once. And you can see every bone is selected. Unselect, and then if I, let's move this out of the way, come on. If I click all bone select, see, it selects all the bones. So that's really fast and quick. A little bit faster. I know you could easily have opened up your outliner, select the M pelvis, hold down the right mouse button, select hierarchy, and that selects all the bones too. But this might save you half a second, or it will keep you from having to open up the outliner. So it's a little bit more convenient. Okay, so of course you have the traditional. Oh, one thing you do have to know that when you select this one, all bone select, you will then have to select your mesh clothing. Or the mesh item that you're going to be rigging. If you have your mesh item selected first and you click this, it will lose the selection. You know, so say this was your object. Whoops. Say that was the object you're rigging. Right? If you click all bone select, see, you lose this selection of this. So then you just have to select it. Doesn't matter when you're doing smooth bind which you select first. Now, with the collision bone select, you can actually have that selected first, and then just click. Oh, I guess you couldn't. I thought you didn't have to. Oh, there we go. Okay, I must have clicked something else by mistake. So yeah, you can have your mesh selected first, and then click collision bone select. You don't, you know. And the same with normal bone select. You can have your mesh selected first and click normal bones. Okay. So, but with all bone select, it deselects your mesh and you just have to select it again. That's the only difference. Okay, so let's get that away. Actually, let's just go ahead and delete that. Okay, so collision bone select. You can see it selects just the collision bones. Those are the little white ones. And you can see in here, these are the collision bones. Okay, if you click normal bone select, now the whole avatar skeleton for some reason turns white. I don't know. You would think the collision bones, since they're not being selected, wouldn't be white. You got me. I have no idea why it's doing that. Why it would light all of them up. That confused me at first when I was doing this video the first time. But it actually, when you click normal bone select, it selects all the original M bones that were in the original skeleton before Bento. So it's not going to select the M bones that were added by Bento. So anyway, so just that you know, and I do have it listed down here to tell you when you hover over it, that's what it does. So if you click normal bone select and you click collision bone select, now it's selected every bone that was in the original skeleton in Second Life. So all these that are not selected, now even notice these look a little blue, dark blue or whatever, these are not selected. That's just how Maya displays bones that are in between selected bones. Don't ask me why they did it that way, but that's right. So the spine 1, spine 2, spine 3, and spine 4 are not selected. And then here's all the new face bones that was added. And then here are the finger bones that have been added to that arm and to the right arm. Here are the wing bones, and here are the tail bones, and then the hind legs. So you can see none of them are selected. So this selects just the original bones in the skeleton from before Bento, just the original ones. Of course, we can click all bone select, and it selects all the bones. Okay, so now you know how to select all bones. So, so let's see. I wonder. Okay, So if I were going to copy the skin weights, right? Say I want to copy the skin weights to this lovely spherical shirt, whatever you want to call it. What you do, now I would delete history and freeze transformation. It's always good to do that before you smooth bind. Okay, so I would click all bone select, hold the shift key and select my mesh clothing, go smooth bind select, bind skin. Okay, now you see it's rigged. And then now we want to copy over, say, the weights from the fitted mesh female avatar. So we come in here, female fitted mesh. Excuse me. Okay, so the female fitted mesh, and we can even hide the skeleton so it doesn't interfere. The female fitted mesh avatar is not rigged to all the bones in the skeleton. It's not rigged to all the bones in the skeleton. Take my word for it. Otherwise I have to show you how to find the skin cluster bone names. Alright, I'll show you how to find the skin cluster bone names. Let's turn this into a half-hour video. So I have the mesh selected. I'm going to clear the history and go into for earlier versions of Maya, skin cluster bone names. There you go. There's a list starting with M pelvis of all the bones this fitted mesh avatar that I made so you can copy the weights from is rigged to. Okay, so I'm going to clear this again, and if I were to select that, my mesh, lovely spherical mesh top, and go skin cluster bone names, you can see it has a lot more bones because we rigged it to all the bones in the skeleton. So it has all 159 bones. And I'll say it again, you can only rig to 110 bones. A single rigged mesh in Second Life, an individually rigged mesh in Second Life, can only be rigged to a maximum of 110 bones. But that's okay. We're going to get rid of a bunch of bones in here in just a second. Okay, so I'll move this out of the way. Okay, so if you're going to copy the weights from, you select the thing you're going to copy the weights from first, this time being the fitted mesh, MayaStar fitted mesh avatar, female fitted mesh avatar. Hold down the shift key and select your mesh clothing, or you can select them in the outliner. I won't. Okay. Okay. So there's the female fitted mesh. Hold down the control key, not the shift key, and I'm going to select the sphere. Okay. Now I go to skin weight tools, copy skin weights, and this opens up this nice little window. I use the default settings, so you can say reset settings, and I click copy. And now the weights have been copied over. It happens very fast. So now it's kind of hard to tell, but it did copy the weights over. If we were to go to female torso, I don't know if the breast will do anything because the, oh, here we go. See? So yeah, so you can see it's now fitted mesh, and it copied the weights over. Okay, so now that we've copied the weights over, we still have I want to say buttload. I'm sorry if that offended anybody. Of bones. We still have the 159 bones in the skin cluster. You know, we can still go for earlier version Maya skin cluster bone names and say there they are. They're still there. Okay, so how do we get rid of all those extra bones? When we copied the weights over, any bone that wasn't in that skin cluster of the original mesh that you copied the weights from, if that didn't have, say, the M spine bone, any weights on it, because it didn't have that bone in the skin cluster, it'll simply make 0 weights on the M spine bone on this. So even though the M spine bone is in the skin cluster, it doesn't have any weight on it. So here we come to another change I made in the MayaStar menu. Okay, So now you can come down here and click Remove Unused Influences. That will remove the bone, the excess bones from that don't have any weight on it. So it will get rid of a lot of the bones. So here we go. And it just did it. It removed 133 unused bones, or bones that didn't have any weights on them. So I'm going to clear this again. And now, if we go for earlier versions of Maya, skin cluster bone names, ta-da. So that's a very quick and easy way you can copy weights out, weights over, without having to worry about that I have enough. If you don't have all the bones in the original and you copy the weights over, what you'll do is when you copy the skin weights over, the weights will get messed up. And you might even see vertices shooting down to the center of the grid. But it won't copy the weights over properly. So, anyways, just use this method. It's a lot easier. You can also find Remove Unused Influences under the Skin Weights tools. So if you're used to using skin weight tools and you have them open all the time because, you do whatever, it's here too. And then, of course, you have Custom Bind Pose here as well. Okay, so that's really all the changes to the MayaStar menu and that I've added. There is one other thing I need to go over. Oh, I will show you how to create a custom bind pose here in a minute. We're almost there. We're so close. So, okay, so we start a new scene. And I'm going to activate. There was one avatar that was kind of messed up. I was not aware of certain bugs that were in the male bento. The female bento was always fine. It was the male bento. There was some problems with it, with the appearance editor sliders. And so I fixed them. So if you want to know, if you're using an older version of MayaStar, and you've selected the shoulder in the male bento, you would see 1.4 instead of 1.96, and that was wrong. And then there were a couple other scale problems that I had to fix. So those have been all corrected in 5.2. So that's been fixed. So that's the fix. Okay, so now let's create a bind pose. Or not a bind pose, a custom pose. Not a custom bind pose, a custom pose. Okay, so let's close this. Let's activate. We might as well activate female bento, that's fine. Okay, so how do you create a custom bind pose? Well, let's say you want to create an A pose, a true A pose, versus, say you don't like that A pose. Say you don't like the arms being bent and the legs being bent. This is actually when you go into I've said this in other videos, this pose is actually from the appearance editor in Second Life. When you go to edit your shape, you know how your avatar kind of spins around and it does this pose. It stops on this pose. That's what this pose is. And so maybe I'll change this to appearance editor pose instead of A pose. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Depends on how much work I want to do. How much more work do I want to do? I might you know what, I might change that to appearance editor pose. That might make a lot more sense. And then you just create your own A pose down here. Okay. Or maybe I'll make a decent A pose. Anyway, we'll see. I keep thinking of other things and it's more and more work, and it means that the update's going to get out later and later. So it may or may not be there when you see this video. So if there's a slightly different, that's why. You know why. So anyway, so this A pose is not that great. So say you want to make your own A pose. Because different people like different A poses. Some of them like the arms at bigger angles. you know. So let's make this negative 45. You might want it at negative 50, or less. You might want it at 30, and then this becomes 45. There we go. Okay, and then let's see. I didn't want to select the back. Okay, so let's put this to negative 5. Excuse me. I hope you didn't hear that. And negative 5. You might want yours like spread farther apart, but this is just an example. Okay, so once you get your avatar in the pose, very next thing you need to do, otherwise you'll get an error. Well, I'll show you the error, and then I'll show you what you need to do. Okay, so you come in here to the animation setting here, and you come here to animate, and see where it says create pose. You want to open up the options, and then in the options window, you want to type in capital C and then lowercase USTON underscore. You have to put the underscore in, and the number 1. So if I go apply, it's going to give me an error. See, it's going to give me an error because we did not have a character selected. So just click over here. See, it says no character set. Click on that and click Animate Avatar. Now click Apply. Okay, see, it says Result Custom 1. Okay, so now if we go to T-Pose and go to Custom 1, we have that pose. Now it's not a bind pose. And if you wanted to make that the bind pose, you could just go here and go create bind pose. And now that's a bind pose. Now you could bind your mesh to that pose. You could smooth bind it. Let's see. If for some reason you didn't, it wouldn't go to that when you were going through these, and it wouldn't go to that. Either you named this wrong, and like I said, it has to be uppercase C and then lowercase USTON and then underscore 1. I don't know why they just don't ask you for a new name every time you create a different pose. If I were to hit apply again, it would create another pose, and it would add the number 1 on the 1, so it would be custom 1. Or is it, well, custom 2, custom 3. Let's undo that. Let's see what happens. Okay. I'm going to look in the general visor. I'm going to go over to the character poses. Okay, so there's custom 1. There's the idle stance, the avatar default T-pose, and then there's the appearance editor. Okay, so if I were to click on it another time, let's make a new pose, just so that we know it's working correctly. And I don't care what the numbers are, I'm just going to make a quick one. And then go apply. There's custom 2. So now, if we go to, poses, 2, 1. There we go. So, it's going to change, it's going to keep adding, so custom 1 happens first time. Even though it says custom 1, if there's already a custom 1, it will say custom 2. If I clicked it again, it would say custom 3 and it would create a third pose. But there's no custom 3 in here. You'd have to create a button for that. So watch the other video how to do that. Okay, so say we really like these poses and we know we're going to be using them a lot. And you have specific ones that you like. You would overwrite the MB file, the Maya file that's in the scripts folder. And like I said, watch my video. I show these files, and in the description I show the name of the files. So, but this is just to go over. All right. Like somebody's talking in my ear. Come on, just show them. You would go save scene as, And then you would go to your documents, your Maya folder. This is 2014 scripts. And then you got to find the correct MB file. So this would be, although I have a couple of files in here that you wouldn't. This is when I was fixing the Bento mail. And so anyway, so you would come here to MayaStar Female Bento, because that's what we activated. If this was the Male Bento, it would be you would write over the MayaStar Male Bento, or the MayaStar Male is just for the original male, and MayaStar itself. You know, it doesn't say MayaStar Female, but MayaStar itself is the female original, because that was the original file that I started off with. So when I made it, I didn't think about labeling it as female. So, since this is the Bento female, I would write over the MayaStar Female Bento. Now whenever I activate the MayaStar Female Bento, I could click on these different poses and they would already be in there. So, the little angel on my shoulder, or my little Jiminy Cricket, however you want to put it, is like,
here, go ahead, show them. Come on, it'll only take a couple minutes. Show them.
That's my ADD voice that's in my head. It gets me distracted. This is only supposed to be like a 5-10 minute video of what's new in 5.0. It's turned into over a half an hour video. You can thank the little Jiminy Cricket ADD on my shoulder for that. Okay, so anyway, so now you know how to save over the file, and then once you've saved it over, anytime you activate that particular one, you'll have these custom poses. In order to get rid of that, and if you want to write over it again, you'll have to come in here into the visor, go to character poses, click on it, and delete it. Now when you went to create pose, you'd have to open that and do that. Make sure you open up the options so that you make sure that you have this named correctly. To start with, if it's not the correct name, these aren't going to work. So now we don't have those poses anymore. I could create that pose very easily by just going animate, create pose, and apply. And there's the pose. Add a pose. There's the pose. That one says error because we deleted it, remember? Okay, so say something happens. Yes, we're going to make this video even longer. I'm listening to a little voice in my head. I don't actually hear a little voice in my head. Okay, I'm not schizophrenic. Although I do have a friend who suffers from schizophrenia, and she's a great friend of mine, and she's very sweet, and I love her a lot. And her schizophrenia really doesn't interfere with her. You know, she hears voices, but she goes, yeah, I know they're there. She says lots of times it's more entertaining than watching television, but she knows they're not real. So anyway, and she sees a therapist, and she's got some medication. I'm not saying that you should go without therapy or medication if you have schizophrenia, but you can still have schizophrenia and hear the voices and be a fully functional person. And there's nothing wrong with you. Nothing wrong with that. And she's my friend, and I love her. And she's great. So, anyway. So, let's see. Okay. So, if you happen to have an error, it's not, you know you did the poses, and you're not, like say it won't go to the A pose or the T pose or the I pose. It won't even do those. How do you fix it? It's real easy to fix. You do is you come in here to the animation editors, tracks editor, come over here to library, come down here to poses, and either you can try clicking on any one of these. You try clicking on a T pose or the appearance editor, you know, or even the custom pose. And then that should fix it so that this will work again. Obviously, you're going to get the same error. Interesting. Well, probably because we loaded a pose. Since there was already a pose in there, it just loaded the same pose again with a new name. Interesting. I didn't know that would happen. Let's see. So if we go to the visor, go over here, character poses. Interesting. Very interesting. Why is this? Very interesting. I would think it would not even do that. It shouldn't. Theoretically, it shouldn't, because it has to have the name in here. So why is it doing that? Maybe it has something to do with the way I numbered it. I named it. This is really bizarre. It's one of those things that just shouldn't actually happen according to all logic that you know of Mel scripting and computers, of how they're supposed to work. Amazing. Anyway. So, okay, so now you know how to fix it. Now you know how to create a pose. You know how to override it. You know what the difference, the changes are in here are. You know that there's an remove unused influences there. Remove unused influences there. You can also get it there from the skin weights. Yeah, you know about the new custom poses. You know about the new things here. You know how to find the skin bone, the names in the skin cluster. You know how to copy the weights. You've done it all. So, awesome. So that's what's new in MayaStar 5.0. No, 5.2. That's what's new in 5.2. Kind of rhymes. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. Oh, you knew that was coming. So, awesome. We'll see you in the next video.